from the moment I wake up to the point that I go to sleep, I think about coffee in some form, what we're going to introduce as a new coffee in the next couple of months, what we're currently offering, the stories behind the coffee. Sounds like I'm sort of addict. My name's Ed. I sometimes drink tea. I got into coffee when I was probably 18, working in an office, tired, and I would drink vending machine coffee. And I would always pick an espresso because I thought it was the strongest. I thought it'd get me out of the hole that I was in. So I started drinking coffee for energy, not for taste. And I just thought coffee was bog standard, would always taste bitter and burnt. 10 years on, I went somewhere in London and had filter coffee, and then realised that coffee doesn't always taste the same and you can get a lot of flavours out of it. My mum comes from a wine tasting teaching background, so for my whole life really I've heard her talk about wine, like gooseberries and melon, and never quite got it until I started experiencing it in coffee. I'd say a lot of people think that coffee roasting is you put some beans somewhere, turn them from green to brown, and then that's it, sort of like, I don't know, cooking a chicken. But there's a lot of science that goes in the background, and there's so many different new processes, experimental processes that are coming out. It's really interesting to learn, but it's a long process. It's not romantic. Coffee is quite, it consumes my life.
Coffee was never in my pipeline, and often now I wonder how we even got here. Things escalated a lot. There's been a lot of stress and there's been a lot of tears. Behind the scenes, there's so much that goes on. It's tiring, we've got young kids, and a lot of people say I don't know how you do it, but me and Ed get on really well. We make a really good team, which is why we love what we do. My mum always said that he was like the boy version of me. We are different. I'm a lot more chilled out. Ed's probably a lot more hot-headed, or he kind of overthinks things at times. But there'll be a problem and we will solve the problem together. It does actually still baffle me what we've created.
To be honest, I would have never done it. It was Charlie's push to get to where we are. It was probably always a dream for me, but I wouldn't have necessarily put it into reality.
Before setting up Pearhaus, we were both full-time accountants. I worked for a very large corporate accounting firm. I loved my job, I loved the progression, I loved where I was heading. I was on maternity leave. I was going to take 9 months. Well, actually, I was going to take a year off, and then a year later we actually launched the business to the public. It was in lockdown, and we already had our little home roaster, so we thought we'd go and kind of explore a bit more. You could get free samples of coffee, so we just did a bit of that at home. Our intention was never to buy a 5-kilo roaster, but the sales team got me.
I thought it wasn't the greatest idea from the moment that we bought the roaster.
We'll put it in the garden. We would roast in our own small little roastery. We do online retail, and that's as far as it goes. It felt like a huge risk. The roaster came on a lorry. The roaster's about 300-400 kilos. We had friends lined up. We had Ed's dad ready to come and look after our son. The truck turned up, and I actually hid in the lounge. I couldn't watch it come off the back of the lorry. The tail lift was kind of hanging next to a car. So when the tail lift went down, we genuinely thought it was going to fall onto a car. I was worried about the car, Ed was worried about the roaster, and the lorry driver then said, "Oh, I've never lifted something so heavy."
Lifting it into a building going down an off-road, like private road that was just gravel with 450 kilos on wheels. Wasn't great. Built like a garden room, put the roaster in there, and then had a steep learning curve. I remember we turned it on, put a roast in, and then the alarms started going off on the machine, which didn't even realise there was an alarm.
I couldn't sleep all night. I had this paranoia that came above me that the house would burn down and I'd be burning everyone else's houses down with me. I don't really know what we were thinking putting that in our back garden. Hello, you okay?
I grew up in Poole, been here all my life. I'm 36. Charlie is local as well, so like Ferndown area, so we've both lived here for our whole life. So it's important to grow a community-focused business in our hometown.
I love Dorset. I love being where we are when I do my deliveries on a Thursday. There's so many lovely places that I drive to, not Ed. I love being by the beach. We love everything that is in and around where we live. So setting up a business in this area kind of made sense.
We opened the business in 2020. We were probably naive in how easy it would be to grow a business. So like scaling it and like perseverance to continue doing it, we've needed. And then every year we've grown as a business, we've also added an additional living being. So we've got a 5-year-old now, a 3-year-old, and then in between them, we've got a 4-year-old dog and a 2-year-old dog.
When we set it up, we did have our son. He was about 3 or 4 months old, so he was very much a newborn baby. We launched in the December, so he was just coming up 1 as we launched. And then in the, I think it was April, May time, we fell pregnant with our daughter. And we had her in the January 22, and we took our first wholesale in February 22.
From early 2022, we outgrew our garden room, got the keys end of 23, so December 23. Opened the doors here in April 24.
The idea of a unit was probably daunting at first. Why do you want to have a coffee shop in an industrial unit? But it felt like us. Having like a pristine coffee shop is probably not us, and everyone can see the action going on. And a lot of people don't even know how coffee is roasted, what the machine looks like, and I often talk to people and they have no idea. So being able to come down here and actually see how we work and our roastery whilst having your coffee, for me, is something that makes us stand out. And I love to know where my food and my drinks are being made, and the fact that you can see the roasting going on is something that I love.
I would always say that I'm like the back end of the business. So I'll source the coffee, roast the coffee, and then I quite like being in the background.
Out of the two of us, more suited to front of house. My mum actually had her own restaurant when I was about 16, and I used to work front of house, and she's worked in front of house a lot of times, so I've probably learned from her. I love greeting customers. I like to find out about their day. And on Thursdays, I go and do my deliveries to all our wholesale customers. Ed definitely prefers being behind the scenes. But when we first met, I would say that he seemed more sociable. But that's probably me.
I'm becoming more of a people person, I'd say. I don't know whether that should be in there, that I'm not a people person.
He needs to get out there a bit more.
My small talk is getting better. At one point in my life, I wanted to be a hairdresser, and I thought, oh, I can't talk to people. Coffee, for me, has been quite good though, that it's, I never wanted to work in the cafe that like Charlie wanted, the cafe. But I really like it. I really like speaking to new people, like new customers that come in. Everyone's got a real interest about the coffee, so I love being able to tell the story, which is the whole reason why we started the coffee business in the first place to tell the story of origin.
So we work with an importer who has the direct relationship with the farm.
We've made sure that they all hold the same values as we do as a company.
One day I would love to go out and visit the countries direct and do direct trade. At the moment we aren't big enough to do that, but we get a lot of information.
So we have Central America, South America, then some from Asia and Africa. So all over really, and it just depends on harvest.
Currently we've got a Rwanda coffee, which the backstory is I think there's about 20 women who have HIV. So they collectively came together to create a cooperative where they could all sell their coffee beans, and we are then paying an amount on top of the kilos we buy to support their local project. They're raising €2,000 to then be able to put back into the project that they're creating. For me, that is such a powerful story, the fact that there's women out there that have got an illness that they're never going to get rid of, but they are doing positive from that. They're being brave, they're telling their story, and the coffee that they create is incredible tasting. So it's nice to share that and bring the story alongside that here.
Because we pay for quality, we're paying a lot more than you would for commodity traded coffee. So with that money, they have more money that they can then put back into education for children, learning. A lot of our importers do education on just how to run their farm, to be profitable.
I would rather have less customers and have the customers that actually appreciate everything that we are doing than grow and lose some of that ethics. So if somebody approached us and said, we don't want to use specialty coffee, but we want to use you as a roaster, for me that's compromise. So I'm not willing to break what we believe in to provide someone some coffee. Setting up a business, it's been a big ride, but now we're at the point that we are, it's been worth the ride, and we've learnt so much. And for me, as just life experience, I think I've grown a lot as a person, and I'm very different to how I was 5 years ago. This is completely out of my comfort zone, but I feel like every time we're at work or we're here at the roastery or delivering, it doesn't really feel like work, and that's definitely what I want to continue.
It's been tough, and by no means we've completed it. It is very busy, but it never feels like work. I would love to just continue to do this for the rest of my life. So.
What's your favourite coffee? Black, white and big.
Sorry, cut that out.